Oseo.
Oseo.
Cherokee greeting. Wave the great feather. Hey, 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 hey. February is called Black History Month. And while we're doing his story, I'm including her story. And so we're going to start off that way. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, the Black Panthers there in West Oakland liberated black from the word Negro. Here in Native America, we followed suit with liberating Native America from American Indian. In both cases, it's worked. The Black Panthers extolled it even further with "Black is beautiful." Now everybody's pretty used to that, but it was, pretty revolutionary at the time, like that. So, we're still resonating with that. One of the first things I'm going to say with Herstory is that California, I bet you that a lot of people, not most people, think, well, that sounds Spanish, but it's not Spanish at all. The original form is California, the little land of Califia. Even before the famous Spanish landed here, came here, legend of this Isla de Mujeres, this island of women with the black Libyan queen, Califia. Now, you've all heard of Athena. You have Athena, you have the Egyptian Nid, you have Lamia, Libya in Greek, and Califia. They're all the same. They're all the same. They're the goddess or the queen of North Africa. And that's who was here. So the legend already had been in the Mediterranean before the Spanish came here. And on Spanish maps for the longest time, I think sometime in the early 18th century, the maps continued to show California as an island. And whose island was it? The island of Queen Califia, this black woman. And here I am picturing her. And also I've mounted her on this weaving, this basket weaving woven with tule or rush. And that's pretty significant. All the way from Egypt into North Africa. In North Africa there was a great lake, Lake Triton, which was the home of these goddesses, the one or the three-in-one kind of thing. And so the tule, that's what it is. And the Egyptian, happy hunting ground, the ultimate paradise to go to is called, the field of reeds, marsh reeds. So that's why I have her with this. And I'm also having the subject, following this, of the Kuya. I'm continuing with the interest in the Kuya. And so in the Kuya we also have people stemming from North Africa, Libya we'll call it, to here. And there in Libya, we'll say Athena, her symbol was the bivalve mollusk. And that's very established. And so what they followed over here with the earlier ancient Lake Kauai, I'm pointing here, this is a fossil from Lake Kauai, the precursor to the now Salton Sea. So that's what, this is all a symbol for that. So there was a relation of these people, we are here calling Kauai, from Libya to here. The early, like 19th century Americans who were educated, like archaeologists like that, when they saw the Kauai, I read in a book, they actually thought they were Egyptians. You wonder why. Their language is similar, and so forth. So that's how I'm starting, and with the mention of that, I'm going to start with a poem. This book is a very good one, Black Nature, and it is edited by Camille Dungy. She's the associate, or she was 10-12 years ago, the associate professor of creative writing at San Francisco State. And she's authored other books, and she is the editor of this book. And I'm going to read her poem because it really goes along with all that I'm saying here. And it is a her. So she's titled it, Language. Silence is one part of speech. The war cry of wind down a mountain pass another. A stranger's voice echoing through lonely valleys. A lover's voice, rising so close, it's your own tongue. These are keys to cipher. The way the high hawk's key unlocks the throat of the sky, and the coyote's yip knocks it shut. The way the aspen's bells conform to the breeze, while the rapid's drum defines resistance. Sage speaks with one voice, pinion with another. Rock and wind her hand, water her brush, spells and then scatters her demands. Some notes tear and pebble our paths. Some notes gather the bank we map our lives around. And just with that note that she mentioned the sage, here I'm holding a sage bundle here. And look here in this Oya, I have a sage bundle that a Seri woman gave me. And what I'm saying about this, and there in Camille's poem, the sage was introduced to the Cherokee by the West Africans. The sage now is just about, I see it just everywhere. You can buy a bundle of sage even in certain markets. So, you know, it's really growing around. And I would guess generally people certainly think of it as healing and also maybe related to any interest in Native America. So it comes from West Africans. I think even in our Cherokee lore, there's even an idea who it was, you know, that introduced this. And it becomes a signature for a lot of the things, herbs and things that were really brought to us from Africa. West Africa mainly. So I think that's, you know, very, very significant. There's so much in this subject, but the main thing is I want, you know, to definitely mention that and highlight that. The next thing we're coming to, you have this, I have this little thing here. This is meaning the Coyote Star. I said this, you know, last week. The Coyote Star, you know, a week ago, like Tuesday I think it was, rises there over the horizon. And it's very, very important. It's very important because it doesn't last up here long. It just comes up and it's going to go down again. So while it's here, it's to remind us what this is about and why it's important. What's important is the human being needs to, or maybe even must, get in touch with infinity. So that's what the meaning of this is. This is the signal from infinity that we are here. Well, the coyote is the parallel that coordinates us. We are here between life and death, and we are surrounded by infinity. And the Lakota way of saying this is Sung Chi Tupan Hia He. Hia Han means the horizon. It means coyote on the hill. In Koya here is Kawishpa Awin. It means coyote on top of the rock. Now Mukat, the creator, who created the Koya like that, nobody created coyote. You realize that, you know. He's an infinitely himself. But Mukat made him, you know, first mate, and made him like the governor of all ceremony, from birth, life, and death. So he's, you know, the counselor, you know, the governor or anything of all rituals and all ceremonies. And his name is Paha. So he's the first Paha, and that's who is on top of the rock that is signifying infinity. That's the way we're thinking about this and looking at this. Just to mention, to look over here, this I presented this last week, but it's a way that I'm continuing, you know, sequentially. From this is my painting here, that's out in Anza Borrego, and this, would you say this is a coyote? the coyote man, and you can tell that he's got a bull roar like that, and he's coming out of the Iñaki, the Huyania, like that. So coyote is very, very significant in all this. Now the Cahuilla live out in the Anza Borrego Desert. That is their original territory. It's a very large territory. The anthropologists regard all the indigenous people between the mountains of East San Diego, the desert, to the Colorado River. It's called Hakataya. Interesting, Hakataya. Actually, they got the word from the Yuma speaking people, meaning Red River. So the Colorado River, a Spanish name for that, runs red. And so that became, the name for all of these cultures between here and the river. In between there, running through this Anza Borrego Desert, are earthquake faults. And the main earthquake fault is the Coyote Fault. Now that's very significant because these people, for 8,000 years now we know, because of the archaeology in Palm Springs, right away has been dated. We know 8,000 years. For 8,000 years these people have been living on the earthquake fault known as Coyote's Fault. There are some other lines in there also, but that's the main one running through the desert. So Coyote runs through everything, underlies everything. Isli. And I should say, the Coyote Star is, Su'u Isli in the Cahuilla. And like I said, the first mate is Coyote. I mean, Coyote is, underlies everything there in the Coyote lineage. And I have this mask here. This is a Yaqui mask. It's very particular. And, you see there, he has a big tooth. So he's gnaw-toothed. Now, for our language is gnaw and to know are cognates. So it goes pretty good, So this, is symbolizing Coyote nose. Coyote nose, on top of his head there, the cross, that's symbolizing the sun. I like the way, his hair, he's kind of looks pretty, misty, pretty sacred. So that's something that really, has to be in here. The Coyote Fault, and the psychology or the psyche of the people who have lived in this fault line for, we know, 8,000 years. And they have experienced everything. So I really say the Cahuilla are using that line. And again, the Cahuilla is an American name. I think it stemmed from the Chemehuevi, who were to the east of the Cahuilla. That meant the different ones. It's pretty much how they characterize it, kind of like the Germans are the French Germain, the friends. So we often have that kind of thing where we get names like that. So the Cahuilla is actually the Muru Huetam, usually glossed as the first people. But there's a lot more to that. Last week, I mentioned, the Arabic in that. It's very evident of that. One place we're going to go is we're going to go up to, I don't know if it's exactly a town or whether they call it a village, but whether people pronounce it like it looks like Jacumba, or maybe they think it's Spanish and they'll say Jacumba, like that. And I was actually told by archaeologists that it really means place of the wild gourd. Well, that's somewhat of a clue, but it doesn't seem to tie with the language. Nishpa. Nishpa is the Cahuilla name for the place of the wild gourd. In other words, gourd's place, but it means the wild gourd, which is a coyote melon. But almost parallel, again, the parallel of another village, I would call it, across the border, within walking distance of this Yacumba, is a Mexican village. And this Mexican village is properly pronounced Yacumbe. Now, plainly, that's Arabic. That is not Spanish. And it's very interesting because if you say Ya, That's extol. It's a divine prefix, the same as it's in Yahweh. So it means extolled is the mushroom that gives. In other words, is the title, an Arabic title for the magic mushroom. If we continued south, if we could, from that village down to the highway that connects Tijuana with Mexicali, there is a town or a village, what do you call, Los Hongos, the mushroom. And there was, I mean, whatever it was, 20 years ago or something, there was a big stone mushroom there. So there was no mistake. So maybe the magic mushroom could be found in those mountains. But I'm showing you the relation to the Arabic in this language. Since we started with Camille's poem, language, there is really a lot to see about it. So that's the way I'm going with this. Here I have Mukat. This is a new character for Mukat. Now he's the creator, you know, and I have him holding this staff with two feathers, meaning it's a dichotomy because he and Timuewet, you know, were almost like twins. Maybe Mukat came out a little bit sooner out of the spider's egg. But this dichotomy, you know, is what governs the humanity of the Kawiya, so that you have these two here. And their whole structure or system of the universe is all pretty much, you know, based on all of this. And like last week I said how Timuewet, you could call him, you know, the earth maker or earth god, through a parthenogenesis, where the white spider, you know, was the parthogenic factor, he gave birth to Moon Girl. So it's not stated clearly, but the implication is that either Timuewet is definitely a female, or at least, you know, hermaphrodite in that. Although the Kawiya society is mainly patriarchal, you know, curiously it is. So you may not know that. Here, right above him, I introduced last week Mulyak. Mulyak is the progenitor of the people of the Morowitam. They are the people of Mulyak, who's a lizard that was formed from the running tear from Mukat. So here, my illustration here, as I made, this is the spirit visage of Mulyak on a stone overlooking Mukat, so that I can have, you know, both of them in here. And over here, this statue you see here, now this is in Mexico. This is from Mexico. I collected this, so it's really, really interesting, because along with going with Timuewet, kind of gloss him as an earth god, that apparently is who this is. And he's standing on a two-headed snake. That is, the snake is in a U shape. There actually is a name for it, but my mind doesn't recall it. But basically it would mean something like, you know, transformation. And on his back, it's like his backbone, he has a hump. He has this hump. Kalilos. Kalilos is this hump that looks like mountains emerging out of him. You can't make it out from my position here. And here, his head, this looks like a mesa. When we look south across the border, there is a mountain, I don't know the name of it, that very much is shaped just like this. A table, we call it Table Mountain. And so and he has this staff, and I have alongside of him the staff or the cane of Mukat, where the lizard also hangs out like that. And I've added to this, to illustrate, this is a trump line. This is a Ipai trump line, but what it's made of is made from the fibers of the agave. So this was a very important source of material, because they could make nets out of it or all kind of things, and I have it here as that he is the bearer of the trump line, which is also a Kawiya lineage. And what I have in his trump line is that he is carrying dried, but it is the wild gourd, the coyote gourd, which is Nahish. So I really like this whole image of, you know, Earth Maker. I would really call him Earth Maker, like that. And go over here to other things. Here, I had a basket last week I showed you. This is another little basket made by Christina Chizipai. And what's important is made from the leaves of the fan palm. And the fan palm is native, indigenous, and it's been here, according to, you know, the archaeology, the paleontology, for millions of years. It's been here for millions of years, and the whole range of it in the southwest and across the border is the territory of the Kuya, which relates them also to North Africa, where baskets, noticed by the American basket collectors, are very, very much like, not this particular one, but other coil basketry. It definitely relates. Only in Libya it's made with sika grass, but it looks pretty much the same. And so I'm having her basket in here as an example of the fan palm and the total importance in so many ways to the people. And while I'm mentioning her, you can kind of look here. I have this, pot that she made, Christina made. She lives in Santa Catarina, down in Baja, and she lived with her son, and I was acquainted with her. And she reminded me of my grandmother in a way, and she was, did everything to live, as a rural person in the old way, so that she made her baskets and made her clay, utensils this way. So I'm happy to show you this from Christina. It's been a number of years now, so these people would be quite aged. Okay. So keep on with what I'm displaying here. We're in the place called Hakumba, where last week I was showing you the Yoni stone, as the Americans are calling it, is Koishtu'u, actually the stone of Volvo. And from this region, of which the nearest town would be Yakumba, see this pottery here. This is found there. There was a man who was a retired school teacher who had a place right on the border, and then most of the Kumba was kind of deserted town, stores or something. For a while there, it was at a pretty low ebb, and he had a little shop where he was selling things that he found around his place, and that's where this pottery comes from. And what's interesting, you see here, there's two little holes, and the top has been shaved flat. So I found this very interesting because what it suggests, of course, and I had seen pottery, there was a ceramic cover for this, and these little holes are what secured the pottery, the pot with its cover on. And this little pot also is from there. I found there also. So these two things are from there. And this here, this vessel here, this is made by Tony Suarez. He's in 29 Palms, which is kind of the more or less the northern limit of the Kuya territory. And he has continued, he's inherited the tradition from his father of Kuya pottery. And this is very stylistically typical with this kind of design on it. So I'm very proud to have that. Right here, this is a basket that's also was found, cached there in a rock shelter, we call it. It's very old, and it's made of juncus, so it may well have been made by a Kumeyaay, since the Kumeyaay territory and the Kuya territory seem to meet in this area of Hakumba or Yukumbe. So like that. And I have, little Indian corns, in it there. And here, if we go up here, this is a pestle. Now, the pestle, moraga, all these things are cognates. The mortero, ha, ash, is, and the muru, as the muru witam, all these things are all cognate. So this is the standing up. It has more of a a grip on the lower end, but this would be, you know, the working end of the pestle. So I'm introducing that here. And I should, you know, while I was over here, I should take a look at this. This is the ant, and the ant, the name is is almost the same as ant. He's created, or she is created by Mukha. And in the Cherokee we have the ani, awi. Many people know the importance of the ant. These people who managed to find every way to survive out in a harsh environment harvested ants and their larvae. And so, you know, there's a whole way that they do that. But the ant was also an important person because the ants know vegetables. I would call it that way. And if we can come down here, so just following, you know, through this unusual stone that I found out there in the desert. Now, from saying, let me start out with saying mana. If you've heard the word mana, is in Hawaii, in Polynesia, and it's, you know, a supernatural power or force that, you know, has some effect on people's lives. So we have that. So keep that in mind. Then go to the Lakota, Wakan. Wakan is also a spiritual power that can be figured in anything strange, mysterious, unusual, and even to Wakan Tanka, kind of glossed as great spirit. So all of that goes together with the Kauai name, Iva'a. The term Iva is just mean, you know, strength, to be strong, maybe even power in this way, or to make strong. Then it's extended. Iva'a is mean this absolutely ubiquitous energy, power, we call it, you know, supernatural, that pervades everything. And it can be in anything, but it doesn't have to be in everything. So it can be in a person, it can be, here in this case, this rock. To my feeling of this rock, this is a rock that I'm illustrating, Iva'a, this supernatural power, energy, absolutely governs our world. And I got to step aside a little bit here. Here we have eagle. Again, this month of February in Navajo, Asabias, the month of the eagle, like that. Last week I was presenting in coordination with the article that the Congresswoman was pitching to Deb Haaland, Secretary of State, to, you know, cordon off 700 miles or something around Spirit Mountain is what they call it, for a national park or something like that. But the main thing was, in the Mojave version, the Earth guy, Earth person, he reincarnated himself, or was reborn again as the eagle, where he flew up, and then the top of Spirit Mountain is his perch. But here in the Kauai, it's not the same. So I'm doing the Kauai here with this. Every lineage had an eagle. Now they would know where the eagles, you know, build their nests, and they have somebody that would watch that until they could capture, you know, the fledgling. And then they would, you know, raise it somehow, you know, honorably, take care of it, until a time came, ceremonially, or looking at the stars or the sun or something, and they have a special ceremony, even a dance, where a person dances with the eagle, and as he does so, he presses, you know, the diaphragm of the eagle until the eagle lets out a scream and expires. So in the Cherokee, we have the buffalo who never dies. In this case, with the eagle, he does die, but he lives forever. And so that's all a, you know, a promotion for people that we do have a life after death, after life, so that the eagle lives forever, even though the eagle dies there. And so that's what, you know, I have here for all this celebration of the eagle. Otherwise, the eagle is for us, you know, the messenger up there to in Cherokee, you know, Kalunlati. So the eagle feather or some way that we reference, we mainly that the eagle is like our envoy or our messenger to greater powers, or maybe even to Wakinyan, the thunderbird. Now coming to, this is my centerpiece here. This is my painting. Now, last week I had a small figure over here where Mukhat now stands, so I didn't say too much about it, so I could say more about this one here. I've given it the name Nangwali. Basically means image, and so it's a teaching. Unini means to teach. In the Gaelic, Taishbin would go with, you know, seeing a petroglyph or something, where Taishbin means, by your loving kindness do you reveal yourself to us. So this is in that order. This is a teaching. Now we know, because I showed it last week, this is actually an object. I got the object itself from a woman there in Hakumba, Patricia. And she said a woman had found it around there, around Yakuba. So basically that's what we're looking at. Nishpa, again, the place of the wild gourd, where this was located here. So it's made out of clay. It was about 1 foot high, like that. And you see it has features. This is a mouth, and these are being eyes, and that there is a furrow there, a yubel. And so all this that we have here, what is it about? It's actually teaching. It's actually teaching. Well, I showed in a previous talk here that Maria Gambudis, you know, showed from Eastern Europe there were also figures that had this open mouth, but she wasn't able to decipher what that is. But here, again, with Camille introducing us to language in its variations and meaning, this is kapiyahe, meaning to yawn. That's what she is, yawning. So when you yawn, you know, you're going to see, you know, you close your eyes and your mouth is wide open and you take in a lot of air. So that's what's happening here. That's what she is showing here. And again, this furrow here, I gave the Lakota name Oyube, but in the Kauai, everything is a verb. Everything is a verb. So this one, you know, is in-e. In-e is kind of like to make a furrow. You know, the best way I can render this is in this way. To love is also the upright pestle in the furrow. So that's what this teaching is. This is the pestle here, the shape of the pestle that is upright. And these are the grain, the stars are the grain that the concept of the pestle, you know, relates to. And the furrow here is like meaning, you know, to make a furrow. In other words, it's all about cultivation. So the Murowitam, besides saying they are the first people, also you can say they are the cultured people. So the action of the pestle, which has an action and it acts, you know, in the mortero, like that, and all of these things are related. And all of these things relate to the whole structure of this society, the Kauai society of the universe, and our place in it. That's why I say they are a wellspring. So this here, you know, to yawn, and it's called nishpuliyu, meaning when you yawn, you look like me. So it's a real figure that works. And the furrow, again, to see it as a verb, when you do this, you are culturing. When you are culturing, you are making the furrow in your mind. You are making it conscious. You're making your conscious in your mind. You know, conocimiento in Spanish seems to be closer to it, since in the books authored by Carlos Castaneda, he's titled the first one, you know, a Yaqui way of knowledge. Doesn't his English, he says he's translated from Spanish, but he doesn't have the right thing in it, because Don Juan, the teacher, or the sorcerer in this case, has told him becoming a man of knowledge has no objective to it. Knowledge is, is a learning. It's a constant. And the only thing that could defeat a person on this path is they think they've made it, or they succumb to power, or something like that. But it's ongoing, and the person in this path of knowing, of learning, needs to constantly replenish. Now, in the Korea language, hiwe is to learn. Huechu means to know. So only English uses this combination of knowledge. The ledge of it is a suffix that ends it. So that's the mistake that Don Juan is pointing out to his pupil, Carlos Castaneda. You're putting a lock on it, wedlock. Wedlock. Knowledge is actually the word lock, that ends it. And Don Juan is saying, it's an ongoing process, and that there are pitfalls in it, and that's what you have to watch out for if you're going to keep this going. And of course, the last one of those pitfalls is old age, where somebody lays down and said, "Oh, well, I'm too tired to go on." And Carlos is always asking, "Well, then what happens to him?" He said, "Well, that's it. He's been defeated. He's defeated. I'm an artist, and I don't let the world defeat me." So all this showing you all the way that these things have fit together. I think the only other thing I didn't actually mention was, down here I have another basket. This is another one. It's made with the leaves of the yucca, and usually the rod around it is either a sumac or a willow, because they're flexible. And most people have these in the Southwest to sift things through. So all this gives a whole wellspring. The archaeological finding there of 8,000 years at Palm Springs, Agua Caliente, must bring to the people who are still living there, because we now know they have been living there for 8,000 years. However, the Semitic or Arabic has come together with them, we don't know. We can only guess, because the Semitic language or Arabic is evident with other people. The people being called the Pima also definitely have Arabic in their language. All this, differs from the ideas, or whatever they are, that the invaders have put down for their own interpretations. I'm educated in Cherokee, and I have a different way of coming at all of these things. Yeah. So I think I touched upon everything that I have for the moment. And I'm going to finish with this poem that I like to go with this whole theme. It's a poem written by Aris Sedongre, and she is a Papago from southern Arizona who lives in Phoenix. And I like this poem for my theme. Her title is "What Frank, Martha, and I Know About the Desert." My mother used to speak about Coyote. She talked to praying mantis, asked him when rain was coming. She taught me, Frank and Martha, to look for sap on the greasy bark of mesquite. Like the sap was crunchy, crystalled edges, smooth, wax-like center. She told us how to eat mesquite beans. Gnaw on the ends, don't eat the seeds. The fiber inside the pod is sweet. On zoo visits, we'd hear tales of Coyote. Coyote fell on desert sand, blinded by his vanity. Bluebird laughed at him. Now his coat is streaked and blotched. Coyote knew we were talking about him. He let us look into his eyes. My mother would take me, Frank and Martha, to the desert in spring. Stand alone out here. Don't speak. Listen to the desert. My mother showed us a purple desert flower that looked like a rabbit. They grow near the highway. There are patches of poppies near my grandfather's village. Out there in the desert where there is nothing but heat and the wobbly shade of the mesquite tree, look around before you sit on a rock. There may be lizards or snakes sleeping under the cool stone. Oh.